let's begin with a short meditative exercise. Go ahead and close your eyes. I'm going to give you some time to try to remember a moment in your life when you felt deeply misunderstood. With your eyes still closed, really place yourself in that moment and feel what you felt at the time. Think about what you wanted. Think about what you needed in that time of being deeply misunderstood. Open your eyes. What so many of us wanted in that moment was for someone to simply listen to our story, empathetically. A few years back, I did some personal reflection on my purpose and meaning, and I realized that some of the most painful memories of my life were times that I felt deeply misunderstood. And often what I wanted then was for someone to empathetically listen to my story, my unique place I was coming from. And empathy is a choice. Dr. Brené Brown, a research scientist who studies story, talks about empathizing in this way. She says that in order for me to connect with you, I have to first connect with something deep within myself that knows that feeling that you're dealing with. As I go through my talk, I want each of you to keep in the forefront of your mind that personal memory of when you felt deeply misunderstood so you can better connect with what I'm saying. This past year, I did 2 research studies, both devoted to understanding a deeply misunderstood population. The first was in Indianapolis with refugees, exploring the humanitarian crisis. The second was in the Middle East, working to change the American single-story narrative of Arab culture in the region, from terror, desert, and pity to beauty, meaning, and dignity. These studies were done with an understanding that how we communicate matters. 2 elements of this created the framework for my research. First, that storytelling is mutually powerful. And second, when we empathetically listen, we're participating in a healing process. The basic result of both these studies was this. I am convinced that in this polarized political climate, the most healing thing we can say to someone right now is, tell me your story. And then pairing that with empathetically listening, that's revolutionary. Let me tell you why. First, let's talk about story. And to do that, we need to be sure that we're viewing a person correctly. We tend to reduce a person to something like this, or this, or sometimes this. But I think this is more of what a person looks like. This is a photo of our Milky Way galaxy, and that white spot near the center contains a supermassive black hole. The human condition, our stories, just like the universe, are full of things stunning, terrifying, and unknown. Elie Wiesel, a Holocaust survivor and author, once said the words that I'm learning to live by. He said, never see a person as an abstraction, but see in every person a universe. He goes on to describe how each of us are a universe of stories, hopes, dreams, anguishes, opinions, fears, treasures, secrets. We must learn to view ourselves and the people around us less like a spreadsheet and more like a universe to be explored. This is how we see people for who they really are. Once we do this, we can understand how storytelling is mutually powerful. I had the privilege of interviewing a woman who's a refugee from Syria. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah shared this incredible journey of how she cared for her 3 very young daughters and smuggled them into Turkey. During this time, war was breaking out in her once hometown of Aleppo. After the interview, she kindly thanked me, and the woman who is translating for us actually texted me this. She said, I have faith in the community of Indianapolis. You gave Sarah the chance to share her story, and that by itself will help her heal from this difficult journey. But also for the person hearing the story, their life is being shaped by it. I interviewed these two very courageous women in Jordan about their work in refugee camps there. They're stationed right at the Jordan and Syrian border, where Syrian refugees are flooding in. Families come in disoriented, sometimes with gunshot wounds, and in shock, more than most of us can comprehend. Few can imagine what all goes on in these camps. And these women are there as their first responders, meeting their needs. So, as I'm sitting in this very comfortable coffee shop in Amman, my life was being shaped by understanding what kind of resilience, what kind of courage these women have to do this every day. So, I'm kind of in awe, and I asked one of the women, "What gives you hope?" She almost instantly responded, "The refugees give me hope. They show how there are a lot of things a person can go through and do, even if they lose everything." When we ask to hear someone's story, we're opening ourselves up to a universe and their power within. Now let's talk about empathetic listening. There was a fascinating study done in 2009 by Dr. David Raquel and his colleagues with people who had the common cold. What would happen was patients would come in, visit with the doctor, talk with the doctor about their condition, and then afterward rate how well the doctor empathized with them. They found that patients who felt more empathized with by their doctor actually got over the cold faster, and it was often less severe. They concluded that empathy has the power to build the immune system. They even compared this with antiviral studies where patients would take an antiviral drug to try to reduce their cold. But they actually wrote in the report, empathy had a similar impact, but without all the side effects, and was shown beneficial after only one dose of human empathy. When we're talking about healing, how we communicate matters. Doctors John and Susan Parrish-Browell, the directors of the Global Health Communication Center, developed an understanding of communication they termed communication complex. And the idea is that communication is far more complex than we realize, and that it's bioactive. What I mean by bioactive is the way someone communicates with you has a direct impact on your biology, just like the patients with the common cold. How I'm communicating with you now is having an effect on your whole health. How you communicate with each other after the intermission will have an effect on each other's mental and physical health. It's wild. So this is the theory that I kept in mind when I did my research, listening to stories of refugees and locals in the Middle East, knowing that how I communicated with them during the interview was having an effect on their health, and that this would actually be part of the impact of my research. I viewed them as they were, human beings with intricate, meaningful, and sometimes painful stories that I had to feel with them if I was going to begin to understand. Let's look at the other side of this. So without empathy, making assumptions and generalizing is easy. And a lack of empathy is already systemically embedded in our culture. I'm sure you can relate to this. What's the tendency of conversation when controversial topics come up? Topics like Trump, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, racism, immigration, religion. The tendency I've noticed is to share an opinion first before sharing empathy. I noticed this same tendency when it came to the topics of the refugee population and the Middle East and Arab culture. We have to understand that empathizing isn't just something nice to do, because a lack of it can mean injustice. The more we can disassociate ourselves from the human being and their story, the easier conflict gets. the easier it is to reduce a person, label them, and dismiss them. The easier it is to feel separate from them. If we want to heal the world, if we want to heal Indianapolis, empathetic listening is crucial. So, knowing that storytelling is mutually powerful and how we communicate can quite literally heal, what does taking action look like for us in a practical sense? 3 things. First, know the choice is ours. Each person in this room is capable of asking to hear someone's story and empathetically listening to them. Second, view a person as a universe. The next time you see that person who is homeless in our city, or that obnoxious talker in the coffee shop, or your mom, I want you to remember, in every person, a universe. Ask them about their universe. Ask people who annoy you, don't like you, or people you don't understand. Have a whimsical curiosity about every person you meet and everything that came before that moment that you met. Finally, and this is the tough one, be vulnerable. Be vulnerable enough to feel what they feel when they share. That's empathetic listening. Here's what this does long term. It's creating a communication ecology in Indianapolis of understanding each other before making judgments, sharing opinions, and deciding what to do next. It's an act of peace in a chaotic world. Storytelling is mutually powerful. How we communicate can heal. And if you want to be revolutionary, you must know. You already have what it takes. Thank you.